back. We're going to do a longer lesson on simplifying radicals. I'm going to cover all 5 of these topics, so it will be a little bit of a longer lesson. I might break it up into 2 videos, but we'll see how we go. We're going to start with just simplifying a regular radical. So we're talking about square roots here, square root of 16. So what 2 numbers multiply to equal 16? The answer is 4, right? These are perfect squares. The square root of 25 is 5, right? 5 times 5 is 25. The square root of 36 is 6. What happens is what we're doing today is we're going to do something that's not a perfect square. How can we simplify something like the number 8? The easiest way to do it is do prime factorization. We'll break down these numbers, factor these out. What 2 numbers can multiply to give us 8? 2 and 4. What 2 numbers can multiply to give us 4? 2 and 2. And when you're down to a prime number, meaning that there's nothing else that can multiply into 2 except 1 and 2, then you stop, right? 4 is 2 and 2. So we stop here. And then since we're dealing with square roots, we're going to circle our groups of 2 numbers, our pairs of numbers. So we have a pair of 2's, and then we have 1, 2 that's remaining. So for every pair of 2's, you bring 1 to the outside. So I have this pair. So I bring 1 of these to the outside of the radical, and then what's left over stays inside the radical. So this 2 would stay inside. And that's a little confusing, so let me do one more. Let's do square root of 32. So you have what 2 numbers multiply into 32. We'll do 2 and 16. I find it easier if the number ends in even number, 2, 4, 6, 8, or 0, to just do 2 first. And in this case, it ends in 32. It ends in this 2. So I divide by 2. So 2 times 16 is 32. 16, again, I'm doing half in it. 2 times 8 is 16. And then 8, 2 times 4. And then 4, 2 times 2. So I'm going to circle my groups of 2. So that's a pair of 2's. And this is a pair of 2's. So for every pair of 2's, you bring 1 to the outside. So there's 1, 2 here. And then another 2 here, right? There's 1, 2 here, 1, 2 here on the outside. On the inside, all I have left over is this 2. So I take my 2 numbers on the outside and I have to multiply them. 2 times 2 is 4. Square root of 2. All right, let's do 96. One last one, a longer one. 96. So I'm going to break it down, factor it. What 2 factors, what 2 numbers multiply into 96? 2 and 48. 48 would be 2 and 24. 24 would be 2 and 12. 12 is 2 and 6, and 6 is 2 and 3. So I'm going to circle my groups of 2. These, there's another one. And then I have a 2 and a 3 left over. Right, they're not the same number, so they're not a group. So on the outside, I have this 2. I have this 2. Right, for every group of 2, bring 1 to the outside. And then on the inside, I have this 2 and this 3. And then these numbers on the outside, I multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. And this would be my final answer. So let's do one where you start with a number on the outside. In this case, let's say we start with 3 roots 50. So you're going to do the number inside the radical just the same as we have been. 2 and 25, and then 25 is 5 and 5. So I'm going to circle my pairs. The only pair I have is this pair of 5s. So this pair of 5 is on the outside, and on the inside I have this 2 left over. But remember, we started with a number on the outside, so we have to bring this back down to the outside with multiplication. We're going to multiply this number with whatever we end up with on the outside. In this case, it's 5, so my final answer would be 15 root 2. Let's do one more with a different number on the outside. Let's just say it's -4. And on the inside, let's do 98. So factor everything on the inside, 2 and 49, and 7 and 7. So I'm going to circle my groups of 2. I have 2 7s, and then I have a 2 left over. So this 1 7, since I have the 2 7s here, 1 goes on the outside, and I have my 2 left over on the inside. But again, I can't forget this -4, so this -4, I have to multiply it to whatever we get on the outside. So that's going to be -28 root 2. This would be my final answer. So now let's see what we have if we have letters. We're going to take the square root of x to the 5th. So we can do the same thing we did with the numbers. We can break this down. X to the 5th is x times x times x times x times x, right? This breaks down into this. X times x times x times x times x is x to the 5th, because when you multiply exponents, or multiply bases, you add the exponents. In this case, it's imaginary 1. So we break that down in 5 x's, and then just like with the numbers, we circle groups of 2 because we're doing the square root. So on the outside, we have this x, and we have another one here on the outside, and on the inside we have 1 left over. So on the outside, x times x is x squared, and on the inside we have x. As you can see, you could also, when we're doing with square roots, just divide this number by 2, right? 2 divided by 5 is 2.5, so 2 here and then 1 left over. But if you're not comfortable dividing by 2, don't worry about this, just write them all out. You can do it with more numbers too. If I have x to the 6th and y to the 7th, I can still do the same thing. X to the 6th is x times x times x times x times x times x, right? 6 x's. And then I have 7 y's. And then I'm going to circle my groups of 2. There's 2 x's, there's 2 more x's, there's 2 more. I have these 2 y's, these 2 y's, and these 2 y's. And for every group of 2, bring 1 to the outside. So there's 1 x, there's another x, there's another x. Then I have a y here, I have 1 y here, I have 1 y here. And then left over all by itself is this y, and since it doesn't have a partner, it doesn't have a pair, it stays in. So x times x times x is x to the 3rd, y times y times y is y to the 3rd, and then it's root y. You can do this, the same thing, if you have numbers and letters. So let's do one example of that. We're going to start with a 3 on the outside, and we're going to do, let's do 200. 200 x squared y to the 3rd. So I'm going to factor 200, 2 and 100. 100 would be 2 and 50. There's multiple ways I could break down 100. I could do 10 and 10, and then I could stop from 10 and 10 since I have a pair. But the way I'm showing is the easiest way. They're the simplest way. There's other ways to do it. This is the simplest way, but it probably is the longer way. But there's the number, 2 and 100, then 100's 2 and 50, and 50's 2 and 25, and 25's 5 and 5. X squared is 2x's, y cubed is 3y's. And now I'm going to circle my pairs, my groups of two numbers. So I have two 2's, I also have two 5's. I have two x's, and I have two y's. So on the outside, I have, let's use green, I have this 1, 2 on the outside, I have 1, 5 on the outside, I have one x on the outside, and I have one y on the outside. On the inside, all I have left over is this 2 is all by itself, and this y is all by itself. This is multiplication, but again, don't forget on this one, I put in a 3 up here. So that means you got to take this 3 and also bring it to whatever you have on the outside. So I'm going to have this 3 here. So now I can do this multiplication. 3 times 2 times 5 is 30. X, y, and then 2 times y is 2y. So this would be my final answer. I want to do one more. We're going to do -2 on the outside, and on the inside, I'm trying not to make these too big because it does get kind of long when you're factoring out. But I also don't want to do the same numbers over and over again. But let's do 72 x to the 5th, y to the 3rd. All right, so I'm going to factor out 72, do my tree, 2 and 36, 2 and 18, and again I could have done 6 and 6, 2 and 9, 3 and 3, and then I have x, 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 because I have 5 x's, and I have 3 y's, y, y, y. So that's everything inside the radical. So I'm going to circle my groups of 2. So I have a pair of 2's and a pair of 3's, pair of x's, another pair of x's, and another pair of y's. So on the outside, I'm going to go over here and do that. I have 1, 2, a 3, 1, 2 x's, so that would be x times x, 1 y times y. Inside the radical, I have this 2, this x, and this y. And I can't forget that I also, in this particular problem, I started with a -2, so that's going to have to come out to multiply what's on the outside. So -2 times 2 times 3 is -12. X times x is x squared. Y, square root of 2xy. And that would be my final answer. A common mistake that I see, and I'll do it really quick, is because it can get a little confusing, as a common mistake I'll see is that people pick numbers from, they might pick this number by accident, not realizing that they already factored it. So remember, you want to pick the numbers at the ends. So this number, this number, this number, this number, this number, they should all be the prime numbers. You could, while you're going through it, underline it so you know that's the one that you want to pick when you start circling your pairs. But pay attention and make sure you pick the ones on the ends of the tree. So 32, we've done 32 before, but let's do it again. So 32, this pair. So I have 1, 2 times this 2, right? Each pair I bring 1 to the outside. And on the inside I have this one. So that would be 4 root 2. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about is doing math, working with radicals. So if you have a 3 of root x plus 4 of root x, you can simplify this the same way we simplified 3x plus 4x, right? 3x plus 4x would be 7x. This is the same thing, except instead of just an x, it's the square root of x. So 3 and the square root of x plus 4 times the square root of x would be 7 root x. This is simplest terms because these are like terms. So one more, a little bit more complicated. Let's say I have negative 2 root x plus root x plus 4. Right, my like terms are going to be the ones that have the root x. So this one and this one are like terms. This is just a number, so I can't combine it, but I can combine this. Negative 2 root x plus x would be negative 2 plus 1. So that would be negative 1 root x, right? These would combine to that, and then I have plus 4 left over. And I don't need the negative 1, right? I can just have negative x plus 4 because the 1 is imaginary. Again, this type of problem is the exact same as if it was just negative 2x plus 4, right? Negative x plus 4. Right? It's just combining like terms. Just like with combining like terms, they have to be the same variable. 4 root x plus 6 root y minus 7 root x. Right? My like terms are these because they have the same variable. They're both the square root of x. So I can combine 4 minus 7 and get minus 3 root x. And then there's nothing to combine with this root y, so it just comes down to 6 root y. And this would be my final answer. Again, we're always good with the combining like terms, and that's all this is. Instead of 4x plus 6y minus 7x, the only difference is that these are roots. But you would do this. You guys know how to do this, and it translates the same as this, right? Combine your like terms, and if it doesn't have a term, you just bring it down. All right, the last thing would be multiplication. If you're multiplying radicals, you multiply the outside numbers. So 2 times 6 is 12. And then you multiply the inside the radical. The square root of 3 times the square root of 5 would be the square root of 12. So 2 times 6 is 12. Root 3 times root 4 is root 12. And then you have to see if you can simplify it. Can I simplify the square root of 12? Let's break it down. 2 times 6, 2 times 3. It looks like I can because there's a pair of 2's. So I have 1, 2 on the outside. On the inside, I would have this 3 left over. But remember, I had a 12 here, so I got to multiply that. So 12 times 2 is 24, root 3. Now let's do another one. Let's do 4 root 2 times 6 root 3. So again, you multiply the outside times the outside, 24. 4 times 6 is 24. Root 2 times root 3 is root 6. And then let's see if we can break down the 6. Let's see, 2 and 3. That's it. These are both prime numbers. I can't go any simpler than this, and there's not a pair, so I can't do it. So my final answer is going to be 24 root 6. Let's do one more. A little bit harder. So 3 root 10 times 4 root 20. So multiply outside times outside. 3 times 4 is 12. And then inside times inside. 10 times 20 is 200. Then I should be able to simplify the root 200. So that would be 2 and 100. 2 and 50. 2 and 25. And 5 and 5. I'm going to circle my pairs. I have a pair of 2s. I have a pair of 5s. The only thing left over is this 2. So on the outside, I have this 2, this 5, and on the inside I have this 2. But again, remember I started with this 12, so I got to bring it down here. So 12 times 2 times 5. 12 times 2 times 5 is 120. And then on the inside, all I have left is this 2. So that would be my final answer. That was a lot of material. That was all the simplifying radicals lesson. So hopefully I went a little faster than I thought I was going to. But it's a YouTube video, so you can rewind it if you need to. But yeah, that's it. Have a good day.